Carl Jung showed us that within each of us there is a hidden universe, a space invisible to the eye, but deeply felt in the heart. It is there that we find the key to understanding who we truly are. This inner world speaks softly, like a whisper that calls us to look beyond appearances. But the problem is that we live in a society that bombards us with distractions and makes us believe that the answers are always outside. Jung, however, invites us to take a bold step, slow down and look within. Perhaps you have felt lost, trapped in a cycle of confusing emotions, unfulfilling relationships, or a meaningless routine. Why does this happen? According to Jung, it is because we forget to listen to our own voice, that deep part of us that holds the answers we so desperately seek. This disconnection goes beyond emotions. It influences our choices, our relationships, and even our health. The real challenge is not to fix what is outside, but to face what we have been ignoring inside. Jung called this process shadow integration, the moment when we face the parts of ourselves that we have repressed, unresolved emotions, fears we have avoided, and pains we insist on hiding. It is like a pent-up energy that needs to be released, but it takes courage because looking within means confronting our vulnerability, our mistakes, and above all, our responsibility. Have you ever felt this heaviness? That empty feeling at the end of the day, the tiredness after certain interactions, or the resistance whenever you try to change something in your life? This is not a whim of your mind. It is your unconscious trying to communicate. Jung believed that the unconscious does not use words, but symbols and emotions, a secret language that we can only understand when we stop to listen. Ignoring these signs distances us from ourselves, accumulating an invisible burden that we carry without realizing it. We start to prioritize the needs of others, thinking that this is the right thing to do, that it is an act of kindness. But in reality, to heal our emotional wounds, we need to learn to prioritize ourselves. It is not selfishness, it is self-love, something that Jung considered fundamental to a full and authentic life. Saying no is not just a catchphrase or a motivational cliché. It is a profound act of self-respect. It is when you commit to your own existence, setting boundaries and giving yourself permission to be who you really are, without masks, without pretenses. For Carl Jung, it is precisely in this authenticity that we find the emotional balance we so seek. But following this path isn't as simple as it sounds. It involves letting go of everything that no longer makes sense, people, habits, or even dreams that are no longer aligned with who you've become. Think of your life as a garden. If you let the weeds grow unchecked, they will sap the energy your flowers need to flourish. The same goes for holding on to toxic relationships, destructive patterns, or unresolved fears. These things stifle your true essence. Detachment, however, takes courage. Not everyone will understand your choices. Some people may even call you selfish, or try to make you feel guilty for prioritizing yourself. But this is where one of Jung's greatest lessons comes in. What we see on the outside is a reflection of what we carry inside. If you cultivate inner peace and clarity, that is what your experiences and relationships will begin to reflect. You don't need to convince anyone of your path. Just keep moving forward with determination. Something amazing happens when you decide to put yourself first. Your energy shifts, your perspective broadens, and suddenly you start to see opportunities where before you only saw problems. It's as if the universe responds to your commitment to taking care of yourself. Jung called this synchronicity, those moments when everything seems to fall into place perfectly, as if fate is on your side. But this harmony doesn't happen by chance. It comes from aligning with who you really are. The process won't be immediate, nor will it always be easy. There will be days when you'll doubt yourself and wonder if you're really worth it. But each small step toward your authenticity brings you closer to a fuller, more meaningful life. Jung reminded us that the purpose of life is not to escape pain, but to find meaning in it. When we face suffering with courage, it becomes a bridge to our growth and evolution. Today, I want to invite you to reflect. What parts of you have been left aside? What emotions, dreams, or needs have been silenced to please others or fit into external expectations? And most importantly, What could happen if you finally allowed yourself to listen to yourself and attend to what you really need? Finding this answer can transform your life in a profound way. It is in this process that you discover the enormous potential that has always been there, waiting to be revealed. When you start paying attention to your own inner signals and acting on them, something inside you changes. It's as if a door that had been closed for a long time slowly opens, letting in a different light, a light that reveals your truth. This authentic version of who you really are may have been forgotten amid the pressures and demands of the outside world, but it has never gone away. Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious is not just a repository of traumas and fears, it is also an infinite source of wisdom. It is there that the answers to many of the questions you have probably asked yourself lie. Why do certain people seem to drain my energy? Why do I repeat the same patterns in relationships? Why do I feel stagnant, even though I try so hard? These answers aren't out there. They're inside you, waiting for you to find the courage to find them. You may have noticed that certain people, situations, or places trigger intense emotions, such as anger, sadness, or an emptiness that's hard to explain. According to Jung, these experiences are reflections of your shadow, parts of yourself that have been repressed because they don't fit the image you want to present to the world. But here's the key point. These emotions are not your enemies. They're your teachers. They reveal exactly which parts of you need attention and which wounds still need healing. Integrating your shadow isn't a comfortable process, but it's absolutely necessary. It requires brutal honesty with yourself, the courage to look in the mirror without judgment, and the willingness to accept all the parts that make up who you are, even the ones you find least pleasant. Jung said that whatever you don't bring to your awareness ends up manifesting itself in your life as destiny. In other words, what you avoid facing will continue to repeat itself in different situations until the moment you finally decide to face it head-on. Accepting yourself completely is the first step to true transformation. And when you do that, you don't just change your story, you finally set yourself free. Imagine that you are carrying a backpack full of rocks. Each rock represents something that you have been holding on to, a repressed emotion, a fear that you have never faced, or even a toxic relationship that you insist on not letting go of. The weight of this backpack is greater than it seems, and even without realizing it, it may be preventing you from moving forward. But here's the thing. You have the power to open that backpack, examine each rock, and decide which ones you no longer need to carry. Letting go of that weight is liberating and transformative. Letting go isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about learning from the experience, taking what was helpful and letting go of what no longer makes sense to who you are today. This is an act of self-love, a clear message to your subconscious that you are ready to receive something better. When you do this, your energy changes. And as Jung said, the outside world is a reflection of what's going on inside us. As you transform your inner self, the world around you inevitably begins to align. You may find that when you put yourself first, certain people and situations simply disappear from your life. This isn't a coincidence, it's an alignment. What doesn't fit with the new you simply can't hold up. This process can be painful. Letting go of what is familiar, even if it doesn't do you any good, is never easy. But it is necessary. It is only by letting go of the old that you create space for the new. And as you move forward, curious things begin to happen. People who inspire and support you begin to appear. Experiences that once seemed impossible flow naturally. This is the synchronicity that Jung spoke of, that feeling that everything happens at the perfect time. But getting to that point takes courage. The biggest obstacle isn't other people, it's you. It's that voice inside that keeps telling you that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve love or success, and that you should just settle. Jung called this voice the inner critic. It's the result of other people's expectations, the criticism you've received, and the failures you've faced over the years. But here's the truth. That voice isn't you. It's just an echo from your past. And you have the power to silence it, replacing it with a new narrative, one of compassion and self-worth. When you start treating yourself with more kindness, something amazing happens. You start to trust your decisions more, you feel more secure in your choices, and most importantly, you start to believe in your ability to create a life that truly inspires you. You don't need anyone else's approval to be happy, you just need your own. Prioritizing yourself goes far beyond simply saying no to others. It's about giving yourself the right to be happy, even if it means disappointing a few people along the way. Life doesn't have to be a constant battle. It's a journey of self-discovery, growth, and connection. But to live it fully, you need to have the courage to look within, face your shadows, and leave behind what no longer makes sense. This was Carl Jung's great legacy, the invitation to truly know yourself, not the version of yourself you think you should be, but who you really are. And when you embark on this journey, something powerful happens. You begin to remember who you really are, not the role you play in society, not the image you try to project to the world, but your authentic self, that unique and valuable being that has always been there, waiting to be recognized. When you live from this place of authenticity, everything around you begins to transform. And more than that, you begin to inspire others to do the same. It's like waking up from a long, hazy dream, where suddenly everything starts to make sense. This awakening is not a single, sudden event. It's a gradual process, built on each small moment of self-exploration, each decision to listen to yourself and put yourself first. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, beyond the social masks, expectations, and external influences that have shaped your personality. But this journey is rarely linear. It often feels like a maze. You take one step forward and two steps back. At times, you may even feel completely lost. Yet even in the confusion, you are progressing, because each step brings you closer to your true self. Resistance is part of the journey, and it comes not just from the world around you, but from within you. There is a part of you that feels comfortable with the familiar, even if that familiar no longer serves you. The human mind tends to cling to the familiar because the unknown seems scary. But here's the great irony. It's precisely by going through the unknown that you find the answers you've always sought. Only those who have the courage to leave their comfort zone can discover what it truly means to live life to the fullest. Jung believed that it is precisely in moments of greatest uncertainty that our greatest transformations occur. When everything around us seems to be falling apart, we are challenged to let go of the idea of who we thought we were, to finally discover who we really are. And while this journey can be deeply personal, it is important to remember that you are not alone. Facing your shadows doesn't mean fighting something external, but rather integrating parts of yourself that have been rejected or repressed. Jung said that our shadows are not enemies. In fact, they can be great allies if we have the courage to listen to them. Every intense emotion, every overreaction, and every pattern that seems to repeat itself is actually an invitation to look beyond the surface. Being honest with yourself can be uncomfortable, but it's a liberating act. When you face what you've tried to hide, you realize that you're much stronger than you thought. You have the ability to process your pain and transform it into something that makes you more resilient. And it's in this process that you reclaim your power. You no longer need to seek validation from outside sources because you discover that everything you need is already inside you. Things that didn't work out, whether it was a failed relationship, a job that didn't live up to expectations, or a goal that seemed impossible, weren't failures. They were mirrors, reflecting back to you what you needed to learn about yourself. Jung taught us that even the most painful experiences have a purpose, to help you grow, evolve, and get closer to your true self. But it's important to understand that growth doesn't mean never facing challenges again. Obstacles will continue to arise, but with each lesson learned, you become better equipped to deal with them. The path to transformation is continuous, and each step you take brings you closer to who you truly are. Life is always presenting us with new challenges, lessons, and opportunities to evolve. But when you learn to put yourself first, listen to your own voice, and trust your intuition, you face these moments with strength, not weakness. This doesn't mean that fear disappears. It's still there, but it no longer has the power to paralyze you. Intuition, that inner voice we often ignore, is one of the most powerful tools we have. Jung believed that our unconscious mind guides us toward what is best for our soul. However, listening to this voice takes practice, because we live in a society that teaches us to look outside ourselves for answers rather than inside. Regaining that trust in your intuition is an act of courage and self-love. one that can completely transform your life. Each time you choose to prioritize yourself, your connection to your intuition grows stronger. Things that previously went unnoticed start to catch your attention. A strange feeling, a persistent thought, an emotion that pops up out of nowhere. These aren't accidental. They're signals from your subconscious telling you that you're on the right path. When you learn to listen to these signals, you realize that you've never been walking in the dark. Following this intuition completely transforms the way you live. Decisions that once seemed complicated start to flow more naturally. The opportunities you've been searching for start to appear. Most importantly, this journey connects you deeply with who you really are. This connection isn't something you have to find outside of yourself. It's always been there, just waiting for you to stop long enough to acknowledge it. Jung reminded us that the most important relationship we can cultivate is the one we have with ourselves. But in a world that constantly pressures us to meet external expectations and fit into imposed molds, it's easy to lose that connection. We rarely stop to ask ourselves, what do I really want? What do I need to feel fulfilled? And while these questions may seem simple, they carry enormous power. The power to transform your life from the inside out. True fulfillment is not found in perfection or in the approval of others, but in being authentic. Being authentic is having the courage to face all parts of yourself, even those that we prefer to hide, our shadows, as Jung called them. The shadow should not be seen as something to fear, but as something to understand. Each aspect of our shadow carries a lesson, a wisdom that can help us grow. To access this wisdom, we need to look within ourselves with courage and curiosity. You might think that emotions like anger, sadness, or guilt should be avoided or repressed, but these emotions are not enemies. They are messengers. They alert us to something that needs our attention. Anger can signal that your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness can signal how much something you valued has been lost. And guilt can make us reflect on the consequences of our actions. Jung reminded us that the problem is not in these emotions, but in ignoring them. When you decide to prioritize yourself, you begin to change your perspective. Instead of seeing your emotions as something to be controlled, you begin to see them as allies that help you understand yourself better. This change in perspective is crucial to emotional healing. Emotional release doesn't happen overnight. It's a process that takes time and patience. There are layers of feelings and experiences that have accumulated over the years, and each of these layers deserves to be explored carefully. This process can be uncomfortable or painful, but it's deeply healing. Each time you choose to face your emotions instead of running away from them, you take a step toward your true, authentic self. Prioritizing also means learning to set clear boundaries. Jung believed that our boundaries not only protect our energy, but also reflect how much we value our lives. Every time you allow someone to overstep your boundaries without consequence, you send a message to your subconscious that your needs are not important. When, on the other hand, you learn to say no, firmly and lovingly, you are asserting your right to live a life that is in harmony with your essence. These boundaries aren't walls to keep people away, but rather a way to protect what's most precious to you. By setting boundaries, you're not only taking care of your own emotional well-being, but you're also teaching others how to treat you. This process can be especially challenging if you're used to putting others' needs ahead of your own, but it's an essential act of self-love. Putting yourself first doesn't mean neglecting others, but it's also about making sure you take care of yourself. True fulfillment does not come from perfection or seeking approval from others, but from authenticity. When we are at peace with ourselves, we have much more to offer others. Jung said that true connection only happens when we are genuine, and the relationships that form from this authenticity are deep, meaningful, and transformative. As you follow this path, you will notice that some relationships change. Some grow stronger, others fall apart. This can be painful, but it is necessary. The people who share your truth will stay by your side, while those who do not will go their own way. This process is natural and part of your growth. The power of putting yourself first is that by doing so, you inspire others to do the same. Your courage to live authentically creates a ripple effect. Those around you begin to question their own lives, seek their truth, and make decisions that bring them closer to their true selves. That's the power of authenticity. It not only transforms your life, but also the world around you. When you choose to prioritize your emotional well-being, embrace your own humanity, and confront your shadows, you begin a profound shift, not only in your life, but also in the lives of those around you. This journey is not easy, but the rewards are immeasurable. You regain your energy, clarity, and purpose, and begin to live a reality that reflects who you truly are. Jung taught us that true transformation doesn't happen by avoiding challenges, but by facing them head-on. By prioritizing yourself, you give yourself permission to let go of what no longer resonates with you, create more authentic relationships, and live in a state of wholeness. This is not only a gift to you, but to the world. When you live from your truth, you inspire others to do the same. Imagine the impact you could have by sharing this message with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone in your circle is struggling with their own shadow, stuck in patterns they don't understand, or feeling disconnected from themselves. This content could be the spark that propels them to begin their own healing and self-discovery process. Thank you for being a part of this journey. This is not the end, but the beginning of something greater. Life is calling you to remember who you are and live in your truth. Change starts with you. See you in the next video.